Good morning. Good morning. Welcome. Welcome to the session. Good morning. We're going to start here shortly. Good morning. Good morning. As we begin to join, and we may wait for just about another minute, if you would put in the chat possibly what county you're with or what organization or school district, just so we can see who's joining us today, that would be wonderful. So as you guys are entering, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Redisha Young Willingham. I am with the state support team in Region 11, which is Central Ohio. And today I'm going to welcome you to this session. Today, my sessions that I'm responsible for will deal with the career field agriculture. And this morning, we're going to have both presenters here from ICEV, and we're presenting this morning in this session on the American Meat Science Association's certifications, as well as we're going to present on Equipment Language Training Council's Principle of the Swamp Engines. Today, I'm going to ask that our presenters introduce themselves. We have joining us with ICEV, Emma Stanton and David Cambray. So let me actually. All right, David.
Good morning, everybody. My name is David Cambry. I just help out within the state of Ohio and different things with PD and all that. And so, just wanted to introduce myself. I was a former ag teacher myself before I moved over to ICEV. Today's session, we're going to go over those certifications. We're going to stop and have some question and answer times. Please, at any time, type something in the chat if you have a question. Stop and ask any questions because whenever I was an ag teacher, I always had questions and we ran out of time. So I don't want us to run out of time. We won't run out of time. Ask the questions, ask, because our job is to make you feel comfortable with the curriculum, comfortable with diving deep into it and understanding what opportunities it provides to the students within your state. And then I'm going to allow Emma to introduce herself, and then we'll get kick started.
Morning, everybody. My name is Emma Stanton, and I'm actually the territory manager for the state of Ohio. David and I work in tandem across the country, and he especially was a great person to pull in today because of his ag science background. So if there is anything that you do need, I would love for you to contact me. I am about 4 or 5 days here from having a baby, so that's why I really wanted him here to make sure that there was a backup person just in case I was going to be out at the very last moment. But I'm so grateful that he's joined us today with the expertise that he brings to the table. So thank you for joining me today, David. And let's get started. Let's talk about certifications.
So in the chat, while I'm getting this pulled up, if y'all want to type in any familiarity with ICEV or the testing platform that we provide in general, you could just type that in the chat. Again, I want it to be interactive. I don't want me to just talk the whole time because that's boring, and we don't want it to be boring. We want it to be fun and active, to make it a good time. And then also it's in the morning time, so we don't want anybody sleeping. I know that getting back from the holidays, we're all gonna be tired. So in our website, you'll see that you're gonna have what's called state resources. And so state resources, you'll be able to click on the state of Ohio, and this is constantly being updated. But on there, it'll break down different aligned courses, but then the industry recognized credentials. And then specifically, we're going to be talking about these two and the EETC one. They will show you the number of points that they're worth within your state accountability system. And so make sure that you take note of that throughout all the stuff that we'll have and we'll show you today. It'll show you that so that you'll feel comfortable on that. On this is going to be like a high level overview of each one. And so if you look within there and you click within there, it's going to show you potential related occupations, not all of them, but some of them. And then it's going to show you the overview of the certification itself and what industry standards that it meets. And so these industry standards, we are the testing platform for these certifications, but we partner with certifying agencies like the American Meat Science Association and EETC. And so those are our industry partners that we work hand in hand with. And then we are kind of their education arm and their testing platform. So you'll be able to get all the curriculum, everything through us, and then be able to test through us as well. But those are the certifying bodies who help us to design all of the standards because that's what they needed within their workforce needs. So then after that, if I go and I click onto the website, I can be able to log in from there. And so I went ahead and logged in. And so the way that it'll work is that I always like to point out that you have tutorials. They're step-by-step screen records of everything that you could potentially do. And then they also have this chat feature if you ever need help in any time or schedule online training for any training needs that aren't in person. You can be able to schedule it online any time of day. So we're going to go ahead and add that course. And so when we add that course, just to spotlight, I know that we're talking about certifications, but just want to spotlight this so you know that you get access to everything. Whenever you use our platform, you'll gain access to everything that's on the ag pathway. And so you'll see all of these courses that are on there. And then if you go up at the top, you'll see that they have different areas. So you have your course playlist, your judging leadership playlist, subject area playlist, and then it says ICEV testing platform certifications. That's what we're going to be working in today. I always want to point that out because if you're trying to find the certification playlist, you might say, oh, where is that in the course playlist? But then it's not going to be there because it's specifically tiered off on the ICEV testing platform certifications. And then from there, the ones that we're going over in this first session are right here. And so for the AMSA meat selection and cookery, we can go ahead and hit select playlist. After we hit select playlist, we'll go ahead and add it. And so I can do AMSA search, and I'm doing it in first out. So we're going to do first out. I'm going to add the course, and then I'm going to save and exit. So after I've saved it, exited, and added it, I'll just go to the bottom. And so this is going to be where you're going to see all of the units. So you're going to have a pacing guide. In that pacing guide, it's going to go over the units and it's going to go over the objectives. Within the lesson plans, it'll go over your days of teaching built off of a 55-minute class period. And so you won't see the days right here for the certification playlist, but you'll see that on other playlists that they'll have the days. Proctoring guidelines. So whenever you're going into it, this will break it down into educational settings, any testing requirements, and as well as you might have local district requirements that are required. And so make sure that you're following all proper safety, test safety and test security procedures whenever you're doing all of that. And so then in here, you'll see all of these units. And so whenever you go into the units, you're going to see that they're going to break down into the different standards that are covered within the certification. At the top part right here, there's going to be strategies for success. So we don't want to have this as like a gotcha moment or anything like that for the teacher or the student. So we try to allow you to be prepared as much as possible to have the best opportunities to be able to provide a quality experience for the students. And so when you see on there, you'll see certification strategies for success teacher video. There's also going to be this student video and the PowerPoint as well. And this is that student video. And then I want to point out this PowerPoint. I'm not going to go into the weeds of it too much, but just going over at a high level. When you go into the PowerPoint, we do allow for a pre-test to be done for our certifications. Those pre-tests, and I'll show you how to add them. They're 100-question tests that pulls from a bank, and it'll be able to allow for you to give them a pre-test to see where they're at and where they need to be going. And it'll break down an industry standard report. And so if your students are really strong at something, you may be able to tailor your time to spend more time on stuff that they're weaker at. That way you can be able to reach those students and optimize the time that you're spending with them. So this will go over the different topics that it's covering. It'll go over that the certification exam itself is a 100-question test. And then it breaks down those standards like we were talking about before. And then in here, I'm going to break down how on the left and on the right, our program is not remember the question, remember the answer, regurgitate the answer. It's about key concept association. So is anybody familiar with key concept association or what key concept association is? If you are, if you want to unmute yourself, you can unmute yourself and be able to say it. If you don't, that's okay. That's why we're going to learn it today. Anybody? All right. So I'm going to give it a couple more seconds. And then if not, we're going to just, yep, I hear somebody.
I'm not familiar.
Okay. So key concept association is where you're focusing on those concepts, but you are not necessarily working on them, just remembering the question and the answer. So if it's about convection or about molecules within there, that will be whenever, like if I read through this and I read through this one, although that these may have extra words and these may have extra words, there's a key concept that's covered within the question. That's what you need to make sure that you harp on with the students, is those key concepts. And so if we read through it, you could be able to see that, types of heat transfers. So having the students understand all the different types of heat transfers would be important. Not them just knowing this question and this answer and this question and this answer, but understanding that concept as a whole to make sure that they're mastering those materials. And the same thing if I went right here on the left and on the right, it's talking about quality grading of beef carcasses. And so both of those are two different types of answers and two different types of questions, but they're both about the quality grade of beef carcasses. Does that make sense now? So make sure whenever you go through everything that sometimes kids will be like, oh, it says this on the Green Star assessments, and that's what the certification exam is going to be. No, it's going to cover those key concepts. So when you're planning out everything, our lesson plans are split out where it'll cover those key concepts, but you want to make sure that you extra harp on those key concepts to ensure the optimum student success. And then you can go through the rest of this. I don't want to waste y'all's time today, but the PowerPoint will continue to go over each section and how potentially it would, change from one to the other. But key concept association is a key to success for certifications. So then we'll go.
David,
Yes.
I think this would be a great time to mention that we certify all teachers for free as well. We want to make sure that all of our teachers feel fully prepared for what their students are walking into, and also just make sure that you've seen the exam before. So any instructor that would like to go through the certification process themselves can be certified prior to giving these exams to students directly, and that is at no charge to teachers across the country.
And we'll make sure that we'll show y'all where you can sign up for that. But it's free. Put yourself into that situation, and it also adds validity behind it. That hey, you got the certification. Now the students, get the certification. I'm from Louisiana, and so in the state of Louisiana, by law, you actually have to have the certification. And so we see that it allows that validity behind it for the teacher to the students. And it really emphasizes on that. So 10 out of 10 would recommend that. It's free for y'all all to be able to do that. But then if we go into one of these units right here and I hit view, this is going to be the same setup for anything that you see on our materials. Is that they're going to have a lesson plan at the top right. Lesson plan, there's going to be 2 different types of lesson plan models, but it'll be broken down by class period. And then you're going to have lab activities and projects and different hands-on components that you'll be able to do with the students. From there, the number one question that is asked by students whenever they learn something for the first time is, anybody got a guess?
Is this going to be on the test?
Okay, so the second one, so is this going to be on the test? And then what's the next question they ask?
I don't know.
Where am I going to use this at later on in life? Why am I learning this? So having that connection of that why for the students is going to make them understand that this is not just because Miss Quinn said that we have to take this test. It's because it actually relates to something that's out in industry and that it's meaningful for them to be able to go do that. And it also shows them potential job opportunities that are out there as well. And so you go within here and they're going to talk about the why. Why are we learning this concept? And you'll see that the videos are going to be from a wide variety of individuals. And that way, every student can be able to see a potential career that's out there that they can go into. And it's always going to be tied to that overarching unit that you're working on. You can share it with Google Classroom if you would like, or you can use our own system as its own learning management system. You just by a click of a button will share it over. And then since I'm not logged into my classroom part, you just would have to hit access and then just check all the boxes, and then it would just share automatically over to the Google Classroom. So instructional materials are printable, editable PDFs. Printable, editable PDFs. If I butcher how saying that, don't worry about it. And then the interactive assignments, those are all your self-grading assignments. And so you'll see they have activities and projects and student notes and then assessments. Some of the assessments that I want to make sure to harp on are these green star assessments. If everybody, if you have a piece of paper, if you got anything, you want to write down green star assessments. So view a green star assessment as a unit test, a unit check-in for that specific unit and that concept. And so whenever I go in there, so if I'm going in there and we're looking at this, what is the key concept that this question is asking? Just by looking at the question, you may know nothing about this, but if you just look at it, what's the key concept that you see? And you can either type it in the chat, you can unmute yourself. We'll give bonus points if you unmute yourself and you're not Miss Quinn.
I have nothing on that one.
So it would be marbling score. So marbling score. So when you look at it, you may know nothing about this, but if you look at the question, and you can be able to see what the key concept is. It's marbling score. And then these are all different types of answers that go in there. So when you're teaching, you're going to teach all the materials, but you're going to harp on those key concepts. And so here's another example. Anybody got a guess? We're gonna have to get a wheel and start spinning it so that we can get some volunteers. I think I heard somebody unmute themselves. I'll ship you some boudin from Louisiana if you the first person to unmute themselves and answer the question gets boudin shipped from me to you.
I'll say AMS just because.
Hey, I appreciate the effort. I appreciate the effort. So it's going to be about organizations and associations, and who can set particular things. And so when you're going through those green stars, you'll be able to look at and see, okay, what are requirements for labels on meat products? What is different methods of defrosting? You know, what happens to them? So whenever you're going through that, that's going to be key things that the way that I would utilize this is that you're still going to go over all the materials, but go through that Green Star assessment prior. That way you'll be able to say, okay, what are those key concepts I need to make sure I hit on and harp on? That way you'll be able to have that extra success. And then the things that you can line up your hands-on activities if you would like to have. And then you can set the number of requirement attempts. I always say to set it at one time to begin with, because think about it, back when you're in college, if you had 3 attempts for something, the first time you were a little risky. The second time you were a little bit more focused. The third time you were making sure you got every single answer right so that you could be able to get the best score. So not telling you to not give them more than one attempt, but I definitely would advise you to initially give them one attempt on the Green Star assessment and then provide them a remediation time and then be able to go in and have another attempt with it. All this will self-grade itself and pull up to this student grade report right here. And again, you want to marry this with hands-on if you can. That way you optimize the experiences that the students have. And then whenever you go in there, you'll go through all of these parts, and then we'll come down here to this review lesson. So at the review lesson, it's going to be the biggest PowerPoint you've ever seen in your life. Like, think about the biggest PowerPoint you've ever seen in your life. Your guess is probably like 100 slides, right? It's way bigger. It's probably like 150. So it's all, but it's not meant to be taught at one time or anything. It's just all the key concepts that it has on there. And so something that I would do if I was y'all is I would make sure to have the students download this, and then on they can either download it or you can have them just do it on here, and they have what's called a marking tool. And so they can highlight. So after they've covered meat safety, that key concept, you can have them go in and highlight. Now, I'm not being graded today on how I'm highlighting, so that's a good thing, because if I was graded on how I was highlighting, I would fail the test today. And so on there, that would be a good way to be hey, did we cover it? Do we need to go back and cover it? Hey, I want you to go through all of those, and the things that you're feeling comfortable with, I want you to highlight in green. Things that you don't feel comfortable with, we want to highlight it in yellow or red, so that they can be able to have that differentiation of, hey, I need to work on these, I don't need to work on these. And that'd be good whenever you could do kind of like a boot camp in regards to getting those certifications. And then you have these interactive assignments, and then there's 2 review assessments that they can take right here. So recapping everything, I would have students, and again, you're going to add the students in here I don't want to get into the weeds of that. If you choose to implement this, we'll be able to show you how to do that during the onboarding process, but it's just like a Google Classroom. You'll give them a code, they'll be able to join in. But on here, you would go through that strategies for success, go through all of the units, do the review, and at the very beginning, do that pre-test. That we have that baseline data of where they're at. And then you go through all of it, do that review, and do a boot camp, because it may have been a long time since you've went over this unit. So then do like a couple week boot camp or a week-long boot camp of hitting all those key concepts again before you go to the testing time. And then whenever you go to the testing time, that's whenever you'll make sure that you look at the proctoring guidelines, that you are taking care of any materials that you would like. And then I can also customize and I can hide stuff as well. Anybody like dad jokes?
Who doesn't, David? Who doesn't?
Hey, it's a tough crowd. I'm just kidding, y'all. I'm a big jokester, so if you don't find me funny, that's okay. I'm not funny. So, on here, I always advise everybody to hide all for show correct answers after submission. So hide all for that and hide all for instruction materials. Miss Quinn, are you a teacher, administrator?
I'm a career navigator,
Okay, so were you a teacher at some point in time?
adult education, yes.
Okay, so let's say first hour you were teaching food science and safety, right? Well, if you don't hit hide all for show correct answers after submission, you're going to be teaching entrepreneurship. You want to know why?
Why?
Because Johnny's going to be selling them answers to all his buddies because he's going to show correct answers after submission.
True.
And so he's going to be rolling up in a Rolls Royce and you're going to be like, how did you get that? So make sure that you hit hide off that. And that's just for the prep materials. That's not, the actual exams, on our lockdown site and all that. But for the show correct answers after submission, for that prep material for the unit test, make sure that you hit hide all for that. And then instruction materials are printable, editable PDFs. And I know I'm kind of getting to the weeds of this, but I always tell everybody to hit hide all for that because that's printable. So if you're going to print it, most time you as the teacher or your teachers will be printing it. And so we always tell them to hide all, because if not, if they have 10 self-grading assignments and 10 printable assignments, what does it look like to the student that they have how many assignments? It's going to look like they have 20.
Yeah.
So then they're going to be freaking out and they're going to be like, nope, shut down. So that's where we always say just hide all for that. That way, then you can be able to limit what the students see. Does anybody have any questions at all? And please, we would love for you to ask questions. I will even go to the Q&A or the chat. Let's see everybody put their information in there. If you came in late, make sure that you put your school that you're at or county that you're at.
David, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, but you mentioned early on about the teacher training being free. Can you talk a little bit about that? And also, if you will share a little bit specifically about the accommodations for students with disabilities and the actual certification process, accommodations for students with disabilities, as well as potentially students who English is a second language. Can you speak a little bit to that for me?
Yes, ma'am. So I'm gonna answer the accommodations in the ESL one first.
Okay.
And then after that, what was that first question?
So talk a little bit more about like the teacher training. You mentioned it being free, like, and getting the actual certification. But I know one of the things, just spending a little time with you guys, that you have some ongoing sessions and timeframes on the support that you provide.
Yes, ma'am. So for the accommodations request, this is only for the certification exam itself, these are the accommodations that we allow for. And you have to fill this out at least 2 days prior. The test is not timed, but it has to be done in one sitting unless the accommodation allows it to be done in multiple sittings. But on average, it's going to take about 65 minutes. And then for the for English language learners, they have this as well, but I will show you. So right now we are having on our platform, we have parts of it that will convert into any language and then will read itself out loud for the students. And so we're working on getting that to the rest of our platform. It's not currently on our certifications, but they can have a Google Chrome extension that's added. If they add the Google Chrome extension for Google Translate, when they add that, the entire page will turn into the native language of the individual to be able to utilize throughout that process. And so with that, you'll be able to utilize that for your ELL students and be able to utilize that aspect whenever they're doing the preparation. And again, I don't know y'all's state laws and state requirements since I'm in Louisiana, so it would have to align with what y'all's state laws and state requirements are as well. And Emma may be able to add on to that. And then we also have a full certification team as well. And so those are kind of your accommodations and modifications. They also have within your materials. So anything that you change will go to change for all of the students that are involved with it. So if I change the number of attempts, it's going to change the attempts for everybody. So we have a social emotional learning toolkit and a special populations toolkit. So with that special populations, it goes over how you reach gifted students, how you remediate students, how you're able to reach students that have special accommodations and needs, and it breaks down those as well. But you would want to make a duplicate course for your students that have accommodations that need to be done. And that way, then you'll be able to customize, give them multiple attempts on stuff. We do not offer where you can eliminate any answer choices on our credentialing exam, anything like that, because that would compromise the integrity of the credentialing exam. And so we don't do that. If the teacher chooses to, for the local test, I would advise them to print out the test, and then for the assessments leading up to that, I would advise them to print those out, the green stars, and then they can be able to work with their facilitator. They can also add a co-teacher. And so when they manage co-teachers, they can add a co-teacher. And so their facilitator of that at their local district or their school could be able to go in there and be added as a co-teacher, which would allow for them to be able to go and see the grades of the students, see the materials, but they can't add any grades or alter anything, but they would be able to see what the students see. And then did that kind of cover those two?
It did. And of course, the question that we hadn't spoken through was the cost. What is the cost of the district or the system?
So I'm gonna answer the other one, and then I'm gonna turn it over to
Okay,
Emma,
great.
for the cost with that. And so whenever you go into any of these certifications, you can request information or put a schedule a demo. And so at any time, I think they actually have, it's the ICV cert promo. So I'll put this into the chat. And so on there, I will hit that. And so that is where you're able to fill that out, and it will allow for you to take the certification for free. And then you can schedule a demo with our time with anybody. And then we also, whenever we are in person in Ohio, we also do in-person testing times as well, typically buddied up with like Ag Teachers Conference or ACTE or different conferences that we may be at through the year. And then with districts as well, whenever if we do in-person trainings as well.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to turn it over to Emma to speak on the cost.
Sure.
And so I'm going to mute myself, and the floor is yours, Emma.
Thanks, David. So there's two different levels of pricing that we have to consider. One is for the actual curriculum. And if David was to tab back to ICEV, his My Courses page, you'll see that when you purchase student licenses for ICEV, you get access to our entire Ag Science catalog. So this is going to include all the curriculum that prepares students for certification, but also everything else. And this tab that we're kind of on right now, if we go to the course playlist, you'll notice all of these Ohio specific courses for Ag Science, and they've been updated as recently as 2023. So we spent all this year kind of updating all of these courses. So you get all of this for the students, including the certification prep materials and the pricing does vary by number of students. So larger quantities get you a better price, but I'll share the minimum price right now. For 25 students, it's $1,500 for 12 months of access. And those student licenses can rotate around. So if you're working on a quarterly schedule, you could reach 100 students with that price point, or by semester, you could reach 50 students for $1,500 a year. And then when we're talking about the actual certification exam, that is $40 per student. So those do not expire at the end of 12 months. So if you needed to spend a little extra money this year and order yourself 100 certifications, those could be used over the next 2 or 3 years as students are ready to sit for the exam. So $40 per student for the exam. That's that's offered here through or hosted on our site. And then $1,500 is our minimum order for 25 kids for the year. Okay.
And then to add on to that, if the student's enrolled in another course, so if they have that financial literacy requirement that y'all have in y'all state semester, they only count as one student. It's like a Netflix subscription. They can have access to everything that's on the platform. So let's say they're enrolled in ag science class, but also an architecture construction class, or they're enrolled into a business class and they have some overlap with those, or a career exploration. You only count as one student when you do what's called a site license. And so that's something that you'll see that, like Emma said, the more amount of students that you add, the cheaper price per student. But you can say a ballpark would be like $30 to $60 per student. And I hate to say per student because it's for the year. Like Emma said, if you are on a quarterly or a semester base, you can reuse that student license over and over again. If you do a summer type of training, you'll be able to use that again for it. And then the vouchers are the only things that you can't reuse. You just have to buy another one. But that's something that, depending on if your district already has a contract, anything like that, that may affect all of it. And so that's something that Emma and our team in Ohio, they'll be able to take care of all of y'all with that. So we hope that answered that question. We're very transparent with our pricing and everything, but it does have some outside factors of, like, if the student takes multiple courses, then it doesn't cost them anymore, but it may save them money because we're not a pay-by-course platform.
I will share too, just to summarize our presentation today, what we are offering is a really simple way to have all of the curriculum set up for you when you walk in the door. If you were hired 2 days before the semester started and you needed curriculum to prepare students for certification, or just an ag science course in general, everything here is set up for you for success. You can tailor it, cut things out that you might not have time for, but we really are providing everything you could possibly need. And we come in and save the day for a lot of first-year teachers that are coming straight out of industry. So definitely take the time to poke around in the system if you are able to sign up for a free trial, and take a look at all of the materials that we offer, both the printed and hard copy versions and the digital assessments and like projects and activities and things, because it really is just an all-encompassing curriculum that covers all of the bases for you to really kick off the year without so much guesswork, so much planning. And we really appreciate you guys joining us today If you do have any questions, we'll make sure to provide my contact information. David has certainly been a great help here, but I would love to be in contact with anybody that would like to investigate ICEV a little further.
And also we do allow for free trials as well. And so that's something that if you want to be able to get in there and see it, because that's the best way to learn about something is to go out and do it and see it. You can be able to reach out to Emma and our team, and they'll be able to take care of y'all. Anybody have any questions?
Great. You guys did a wonderful job. I hope that it looks like we had a variety of participants, both from districts and from support staff. It looks like we had some tech prep in here, getting a little bit more knowledge to be able to add programming. If you do have any questions for them or for me, their information is in the chat. What I would like to do is also have a reminder that I posted in the chat, the actual website for the remainder of programming for today, as well as the series. And then if you will, I also put a link in the chat to do the certificate. If you don't need a certificate, we still absolutely would love your feedback. So I'm going to share my screen so you can get the actual codes if you would like to complete those. Let me share and okay. Hopefully you can see those. And I'm going to go back one, which this is the code for the website. Again, like I said, we have the Google site for all of today's activities, and we also have the upcoming events that are in the series. I thank Emma and David for presenting today on the AMA certifications, and I look forward to anybody who's joining us in the next session. Thank you guys. And again, today's session will be recorded.
Thanks so much for having us. We'll see you soon.
See you soon.